Marksman minions are the strongest archetype in Hellclock, at least for now. And with this build, your Catholic guards use Split Shot to trigger powder bag explosions, dealing massive damage. This build is great at clearing thanks to those explosions, and it absolutely melts bosses, often killing Void bosses, the hardest thing the game has to offer, in mere seconds. That's right, the gameplay you're seeing on screen right now isn't Abyss or Oblivion, it's Void, the game's highest difficulty containing foes with millions and billions, even trillions of health. Not that you would have noticed that if I didn't point it out, because this build has so much damage that it pretty much looks like the normal campaign. Going into patch 1.1, this build got a lot of buffs, most of which came in the form of bug fixes, such as allowing silver bullets to work with minions, and Oxosi to scale minion projectiles. In the past, this constellation did provide the projectile damage penalty to minions, but it didn't give them additional projectiles. In addition, the new Headless Doll relic provides more minion damage per minion, which is a perfect way to get even more damage on this build. So the reports of a Powder Bag Marksman build's death are greatly exaggerated. It just changed form. And for now, let's get into things, starting with Relics and Constellations. So first up, Blunderbuss. This is what converts Split Shot to physical damage, which is half of a puzzle that you need to continually trigger Powder Bag. It also gives it significantly more damage than it originally had, keeps the projectile scaling, and gives it 2 pierces so the clear isn't completely abysmal. Now, as a note here, I recommend looking for Life Leech on one of your Grand or Exalted relics. Doesn't have to specifically be on Blunderbuss, but across one of them, get that Fury Imbuement for some Life Leech. In addition, as prefixes, look for things like fire damage. You're also going to see critical damage, you're going to see physical damage, you could even do lightning damage. All of those things end up scaling the build. I don't actually have any lightning damage on my gear. That's mostly because I was repurposing this from a different setup. In general, though, I would recommend getting a little bit of it. For suffixes, obviously, you need to cap res. Once you have capped res, I suggest going a little bit over cap so you can take some extra hits on bosses. I'm probably a little bit too high on plague, a little low on fire. Phase and lightning, pretty good. I like about 20-25%. If you happen to get a little bit of conviction, a little bit of mana, not bad either, though not particularly impactful at the end of the day, as silver bullets is capped. So once you reach the cap, you're good. You don't really need more. Next up, there is Stolen Weapons, which in this case has a bonus to physical damage and a little bit of that mana I mentioned, thanks to a Corrupted Implicit. Mana regen's actually really nice here, as the mana costs get a bit spicy. Now, Stolen Weapons is what allows your guards to use your Split Shot. Yes, each individual guard does less damage with Split Shot than you, but there's a whole bunch of them. Especially thanks to Call of a Guard, functionally doubling them. And here I have an imbuement for +1 Agility Orb, which is really good, because this basically scales a whole bunch of damage multipliers due to the Constellations. Talk about those more in a little bit. I also have 1 Lifeline Kill suffix. I didn't really find the need for multiple, but having 1 somewhere on my gear felt very, very good. And like I said before, some crit damage. Now, silver bullets, when combined with a constellation that converts lightning damage over to fire damage, is the second part of that puzzle. This way, you are both igniting and also dealing physical damage with every attack. Ignore the repeater skill levels, does not matter to this build at all, just happens to be a corruption on the item. Again, bonus to fizz damage, a little bit of mana, a little bit of conviction. In terms of how much mana and conviction should you get, well, you get the maximum damage from silver bullets at 5,720. So aim for somewhere around there or a little above. Now, Powder Bag is the main source of damage for this build. Marksman skills that deal physical damage, such as Split Shot with Blunderbuss, to an ignited enemy, such as if you have silver bullets converted over to fire, so the hit ignites, trigger a fire explosion dealing 241% of a triggering damage, i.e. double dipping, and consuming the ignited status. So it's removed and then immediately reapplied. This is the core of the build. This is why you do so much damage, and oh man, the Powder Bag pops are absolutely beautiful. This thing just chunks bosses. And in addition, Headless Doll is perfect for this build. Gain 12% summon skill damage per active summon. So if you have 8 active summons, that's quite a bit of damage. At most, you can have 10 active summons from Summon the Guard, and another 3 from Phantom Marksman. Since minions are going to be doing the bulk of your damage, since they are constantly triggering Powder Bag, this is a great relic to have. And I happen to have both physical and fire damage with a little bit of lightning resistance. As one note, just because I have lightning resistance here does not mean you need lightning resistance or resistance at all here. Look to cap your res. After that, you don't need more, at least provided you're comfortable with the overcap for curse. Another relic I quite like is Ticket. Passage takes your minions along with you. This is a very nice feature for quality of life, because the minions don't tend to be the most cooperative, so being able to teleport them to a new location is quite helpful, especially if you need damage on a specific enemy. As a small relic, it's pretty darn easy to roll. You only get 1 affix, and I went for the life mana hybrid as opposed to pure life, because yes, I lose a little life, but I get for free mana, which I can use to scale my conviction. Next up, there is Labaredas. This is a new unique relic from patch 1.1. Whenever you ignite an enemy, that's right, you have to ignite the enemy. This means you have to use Split Shot or Passage. You gain a stack for 2 seconds. Max 4 stacks. Each stack increases the projectile amount and damage of your Split Shot. Even though this is all a buff that you have to ignite enemies for and you have to maintain, your minions do get the bonuses for you having the buff. So go ahead and set your foes on fire. And then the last unique relic this build uses is Summoning of Earth. Phantom Marksman hits reduce enemy physical resistance by a nice 69% for 5 seconds. With the +1 max Agi Orb, it's going to be providing quite a bit of damage from that as well. Now, this one is a little bit more optional. If you don't have it, you don't have a well-rolled one, or you just have some really good small relics with insane corruptions, you could drop Phantom Marksman entirely for Judgment and just not use this. As for the rest of your relic slots, fill them in with small relics, or if you can't get small relics, large relics. Look for things like Marksman skills deal damage to close enemies. Stand near boss and you'll be popping them. Split Shot reduced mana cost is nice for quality of life, since again, you do often have to attack yourself to ignite an enemy, but it doesn't particularly give bonuses to your minions, so I wouldn't get more than 1 or 2 of these. All resistance, of course, nice to help reach the cap. Take these depending on if you need to cap or not. Skill projectile amount, grabbing a couple of these is a great way to continue scaling Split Shot. Remember, you do get a fair amount of Split Shot projectiles here, so you don't need that many on small relics. In addition, increased evasion for 4 seconds on hit with Marksman skills. If you aren't quite evasion capped at 75%, this is a good way to do it, especially going into Void. Now, retaliating relics, when you evade an attack, again, you want to be at 75% evasion, you gain a stack of Counter Strike for 6 seconds. Each stack gives a pretty significant bonus to Marksman skills, so having a couple of these feels very good. Also, you will note, when I corrupted all my small relics, I got Life Leech. If you're able to corrupt all of your small relics, it's relatively easy to get Life Leech on them, but for a long time, you're probably going to want Life Leech on a Grand or Exalted relic. Then there's Split Shot, deals increased damage but has a higher mana cost. This is why the mana cost stuff is good. It gives you another damage multiplier. And then, last but not least, Summon damage. Grab a couple of these just to diversify all of your damage increases. Next up, we have Constellations. So the first thing you want to do, start here, unlock the Discipline path. From there, path up to Expeditus. This will give you Agility Orbs, which you're going to need very soon, because the next thing you take is here. This is the Marksman Constellation. So you get crit chance and damage for Marksman skills. You get skill speed. You also get Marksman skills gain 30% increased projectile amount, which remember is scaled by Blunderbuss, but they have a damage penalty. In the past, this was quite bad for the build, actually, because the projectile skill amount would only apply to you, but the penalty would apply to you and your minions. Now everything applies to your minions, so it's very good. The Hunter's Bounty node also gives multiplicative damage per agility orb, and multiplicative mana cost, which is why the mana cost reduction can be so helpful. The multiplicative damage really does add up, especially if you're able to get around 5 or 6 agility orbs. After that, you want to come down here. I ended up taking the entire Conviction constellation, both so that I could fulfill requirements here while being relatively lazy. I did use a leapfrog jump, but it was going to be a lot harder if I didn't take at least something that was giving me faith. I found this to be good, and the Song of Order effect, when your conviction is reduced to 0, instantly get 100%. Actually, really nice for keeping silver bullets up. And then the second key constellation is this one for the Just King. Convert all lightning damage and all lightning damage bonuses to fire. This converts the damage from silver bullets and the damage from passage, meaning you can consistently ignite enemies. As for the rest of the nodes, well, technically, if you can fulfill the requirements other ways, you don't need resistance nodes. They're pretty darn bad. But I found it worth it to get to the faith and fury that I needed to keep the constellation unlocked. Everything else is damage. It is either lightning damage, elemental damage, or fire damage. So those are all good. And after that, I just put spare points all over the place. Got some stuff here for multiplicative summon damage. Always nice to have multiplicative damage. I put some points here for some fizz damage. Some points here for +1 agility orb. Some points here for fizz damage, fire damage, and life. And then 1 point here for life because I genuinely have no idea what I'd use instead. I guess technically I could use vigor, but I'd really want to put 2 points here, and I'm not sure what I want to give up for that. I guess probably some fizz damage. It would be a lot less greedy if I did that, and if you're feeling squishy, you 100% should. But I wanted the max damage possible, and I wasn't consistently getting that attack speed multiplier, because if I attack too fast, I burn through all of my conviction and I lose silver bullets. So instead, I was often not directly attacking, meaning I had no way to deplete my mana, and so my minions were not getting the buff. But again, if you feel squishy, having vigor will make you feel way tankier, so I recommend taking this. It's totally worth dropping the node here and the node here. Next up, skills and blessings. And before I get into any specifics, I will say this build is not super dependent on stacking certain blessings for certain skills. You can kind of go with anything and it works okay. Of course, the epic +1 minion blessings are very powerful, but outside of that, try to balance things between the multiple different options. So first up we have Split Shot. Now Blunderbuss converts Split Shot to physical damage and combines all the projectiles into a single powerful slug. Combine this with Silver Bullets, which is converted to fire thanks to your Constellations, to both ignite and deal physical damage with a Marksman skill in the same hit, allowing you to, yes, continually trigger Powder Bag explosions. Now Powder Bag deals damage based on the physical hit, and this damage is further scaled by your modifiers, meaning it functionally double dips to deal massive damage. This also means that physical damage, fire damage, and lightning damage all contribute to your build's DPS. Igniting with Split Shot does also have another fun side effect, enabling the new Labaredas unique, which provides Split Shot with additional projectiles and damage when igniting enemies. While your minions do gain the full benefits of Silver Bullets and Powder Bag, you need to use Split Shot yourself to stack the Labaredas buff. When it comes to blessings, aim for damage. If you need crit, you can take 1 crit chance blessing as well, but allocate these sparingly as you get a lot of extra crit from Prayer Vengeance. Now because you have Powder Bag, you also get a special blessing that increases the Powder Bag damage. Because this is a separate multiplier, again, I recommend grabbing a few of these in addition to the damage on your Split Shot. Next up we have Summon the Guard. With Stolen Weapons, your summoned guards use Split Shot, adding another avenue to scale your damage, because now you can get Split Shot damage, physical damage, lightning damage, marksman skill damage, extra projectiles, or you could get minion damage, or minion attack speed. And while the Split Shot's damage is reduced, you have 4 guards by default, 8 with Call of a Guard, up to 10 with the +1 guard blessing and Call of a Guard. So having your own personal army, continually triggering fire explosions, not only solves the normal issue of clear that you run into with Blunderbuss, but also gives you a fuck ton of damage. When it comes to Summon the Guard blessings, the most important thing to pick is the epic blessing for +1 guard, so save your epic slot for that unless you're really late in a run. After that, prioritize guard damage and guard attack speed. Try to get a little bit of both. You can take a couple of either guard rage cooldown or duration blessings to maintain your guard's rage uptime, but you should only need to hit this for bosses, so it's not a big deal if you don't get offered any, and you don't want to overinvest in this either, as they are completely wasted if you have 100% uptime without an additional blessing. Then there's Prayer Vengeance, the utility skill that is pretty much mandatory on every build. It is there for the passive crit strike chance and damage. Use the active component on bosses or tanky rares that live for more than a fraction of a second. As for blessings, they're pretty much all good. Now, Passage is quality of life heaven for this build. First up, it's great for moving around and getting out of danger. The build has fairly high movement speed, but you don't particularly need that movement speed on bosses if you're able to teleport around with Passage. Second of all, thanks to Ticket, you can use it to regroup your minions and get them into range, which is great for bursting down dangerous foes. Lastly, you will occasionally lose all of your conviction, and if you do this while a Constellation effect is on cooldown, you won't have conviction for a bit, which is particularly problematic on a boss like Nina's Monster, where there isn't just an ad standing nearby for you to shoot and kill to gain conviction. This is where you can use Passage to ignite bosses and sustain your powder bag loop. Remember, Passage deals lightning damage by default, which is converted over to fire, therefore it can easily ignite. The best blessings offered here are lowering the cooldown and increasing AoE so that you can teleport around more frequently. Also, it's easier to ignite bosses if you have bigger AoE. Now your last skill is a toss-up between Phantom Marksman and Judgment. You can use Judgment to shred enemy resistances, or you can use Phantom Marksman to deal additional damage, trigger more powder bag explosions, and shred resistances, which I know makes Phantom Marksman sound a lot better. The thing is, you have to summon Phantom Marksman pretty continually, whereas Judgment, you can kind of just cast it once and forget, at least in most rare and boss fights. So I do find the playstyle for Phantom Marksman just a little bit clunky as the skill has a cooldown and a fairly hefty mana cost. But reducing enemy phys res by 69% is pretty darn nice, so I ended up using them in the build. If you need more clear speed, you can also use Future Weapon, but I found a build's clear was already phenomenal, so I kept Phantom Marksman for single target and used that space for more small relics, i.e. things like minion damage to provide more potent bonuses. Like with Call the Guard, your best blessing option here is +1 minion. Beyond that, go for damage, duration, and attack speed. Like many of these skills, the exact blessings don't matter too much, so try to get a balance of each, since the build's pretty flexible, and it's better to combine different multipliers rather than stacking a whole bunch of one. Then last up you have Blessing of Foundation. Now you can go Elemental into Fire to lower enemy fire resistance. This scales your powder bag explosions. You could also go Fizz into Fizz Res Shred, though if you're using Phantom Marksman that won't be particularly effective since you're already massively lowering Fizz Res. On the other hand, you could go Crit into Projectile Damage. If you do, don't take Blessing of Lethality 4, because the 100% projectile increase is additive of all of your other projectile increases, but the 30% damage penalty is multiplicative and therefore not particularly advisable. Another option that I quite like is going movement speed into attack speed. Movement speed and attack speed both feel very good, and you don't particularly need to push raw damage on this build. Now, once I got to Void, the build felt kind of glass cannon-y. Very often a single hit would take me out if I wasn't paying attention. But for lower difficulties, especially Oblivion, life was very nice, and that's a good option on Blessing of Foundation as well. Basically, take anything that isn't mana. I recommend banishing mana. Okay, so next up, Blessed Gear. For your weapon, there's plenty of options. I personally prefer the base damage attack speed hybrid, but you can also go base damage skill projectile amount, base damage fire damage, base damage fizz damage, or even base damage lightning damage. Oh, and pure base damage is an option too, so just use pretty much any weapon with the highest tier and rolls possible. For your left ring, crit chance. Early on, you can use life leech here, but long term, you definitely want crit. Right ring, base damage, or crit damage. Kind of just depends on what's on the rest of your gear. Shawl, go for life. I don't think you need the evasion here. You can't get this much life on gear elsewhere, whereas a single evasion implicit kind of takes care of what this would roll. And I didn't particularly feel the need for conviction decay resistance. Now, on my chest piece is one place where I got evasion, simply because it's a nice big chunk at 23%. Cap, also got evasion here. Again, pretty decent chunk, not really competing for too many other stats that I want. Belt, go for attack speed. You don't really need cooldown speed, you don't need ailment duration. Pants, you could go life. Personally, I went Fizz Res because it makes it very easy to overcap, and I don't have to think about it. Could also go CDR here. This is very much a toss-up / personal choice. I don't think there's a wrong answer. Boots, movement speed and life. Or pure movement speed if you just want to be a pure glass cannon. Accessory, life, that's your main defense. And of course, keepsake, mana, and cooldown speed. Can also go mana skill cost, but if you do that, you really will need the cooldown speed on your pants. Now let's take a look at the Great Bell. Honestly, if you've seen my past videos, you can just skip this. There's really nothing new. I do pretty much the same thing as before, going into resource gain, grabbing core mechanics, all that, a little res, crit. The only deviation from previous fairly standard setups, I'm using attack speed here, and I'm also using evasion. If you really want to see the full tree in detail, check out the planner linked down in the description. Now, everything I've talked about so far is pretty endgame, but can you play the build in the campaign? Yes, mostly. Physical Split Shot starts working in Act 1, and early on I recommend augmenting your damage with Spectral Knives. You can also use Spearhead or Battered Sheath to give your skills better clear. As you move into Act 2, you get to add Guards, Stolen Weapons, Call of a Guard, and Headless Doll. Yeah, you're probably going to be spending quite a bit of time hunting down these relics before you can equip them all. Luckily, with the exception of Call of a Guard, you can kind of just equip them as you get them. I recommend waiting on Call of a Guard until you at least have stolen weapons. But there aren't going to be any powder bag explosions in this setup yet. Nevertheless, you should have more than enough damage to clear Acts 2 and 3, provided you spend a few of your resources crafting and upgrading your relics. Once you reach Act 3, add in Prayer, Vengeance, and Passage. Try to pick up a ticket while you're at it. As you progress through Abyss, work your way over to Zango. Oxosi is the core tier damage, and Zango gives you the conversion to enable Powder Bag, both on Passage and your split shot attacks. You can also work in Phantom Marksman when you get the Summoning of Earth. And also, I apologize, I'm probably butchering the name of these constellations, maybe a little less badly than I'm butchering the enemies on screen right now. And so the end result is a build that's lightning fast, explodes pretty much every pack the instant it comes in contact with it, and provides you with plenty of minions to melt bosses. Now, in Void, the build did end up feeling a little bit squishy, but it had so much damage that wasn't really an issue because dead enemies can't attack you. Before I got into Void, the build felt very comfortable. Especially with overcapped resistances, I was able to take several hits from bosses, and I never felt like anything was going to global me. If it did, well, that's what Second Wind is for. So right now, I feel very confident in saying this is the strongest archetype, and most likely the strongest build in Hellclock. But I also strongly suspect that this build is going to be in the crosshairs for a nerf come patch 1.2. And you know, if it gets nerfed down to regular levels, it's still going to be a blast. Watching powder bag explosions chain through packs is still going to be super satisfying. And so, with that said, if you're looking for more Hellclock build, get subscribed, as I'm definitely going to continue playing the game and make new stuff as patches roll out. Also, if you want to be notified for every video I upload, do be sure to head over to my Discord. Link is down in the description. On the other hand, if you want to build and you want it now, check out my videos for Veil of Quills and Holy Rosary, two spellcaster builds, both of which are quite powerful. But that's going to be it for me today. So, thank you very much for watching to the end. I'm glad you've enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.